that, just after the two exhibitions, what have you kind of hunkered down on here the last couple of days in terms of what you want to see now that the games count?
I think more than anything is just going against different styles. As your non-conference starts here, you start to play different guys, different personnel, different styles, but then you still have some similarities. We all kind of play alike to a degree. And just being able to stick to our rules and do a good job of scouting and knowing what's coming. I think that's the hardest time to do that. Is the beginning of the year, just because people are either not going to run some things in their first couple games, or they're adjusting to new personnel and trying to get things figured out. But this is the hardest time to really lock in and know what someone's going to do. You play 5 games and they have 2 days to prepare. You got a pretty good grip on, what's coming down the chute. So I think that's, for us, is just kind of staying to where we got to keep building our defensive foundation. We have to do a good job of keeping the ball out of the paint. We have to do a good job of rebounding the ball. And we're never going to get away from that. Those things are going to be so important, just like it is offensively to take care of the basketball. They're not going to go anywhere. So just trying to, tie up loose ends and just have discipline on the defensive end. And then from an offensive standpoint, just, trying to get a good shot every time down the court and get our defense set.
Any decisions on Redshirt?
We have not gotten there yet.
How should playing next to size liberate Trey in some ways, in terms of him not having to worry about that burden of wrestling with bigger guys, level game, and having some leeway to foul and things like that?
Well, I think, in theory, it's, having better rim protection for us, and then hopefully having better rebounding for us. I think those are the two things that jump out in theory that should be better. We'll see as time goes and we start to collect data with this group, how much better we are, in those areas. There's no doubt from rim protection we're going to be better. And sometimes that's not simply defined by blocking shots either. Sometimes you can change shots that affect whether they make or miss. And so I think those are the two areas for him. Our spacing has to be important offensively. Anytime you play 2 bigs, you have to have good spacing, whether you're posting one of them and they double, or whether you're playing out of a short roll, or whether you're running other actions. Spacing is going to have to be really good for us. I think if our spacing is good, our offense will be good.
With the Redshirts, just sort of a process question, and I don't know if this applies just specifically to this situation, but when you have a team, generally, you don't want to waste that season just for 1 or 2 instances.
Right.
When you have a team where 1 or 2 instances might mean the difference between a national championship or not, and maybe that's more real. I mean, does that change the equation in your mind at all this season? How much one
I've done
game
that
could
before, mean? 2 years ago, I did that and thought we shouldn't redshirt people because we got a chance to win it all. And then the guy that I would have redshirted if he didn't play, would it change the outcome? Would it change runner-up national champs, Big Ten champs? I do not believe so. Even though in theory before I thought that it did. Now that's just one instance. That's what makes it difficult, because it's not an inexact science, right? How can you future trip and know how it really is going to affect? Well, you don't. You don't. I do know. Do you want this year for Trey Kaufman versus the year he would have had 4 years ago? I know that one. Right? And so, but I also understand the question, because, well, you feel like you have a team like you did 2 years ago that can get that far. So why not keep everything there? And I think you got to think about today, but you also got to think about tomorrow. And there's a huge upside either way, in my opinion. But the downside of it is now you've done that, and it wouldn't have mattered, and now he doesn't have 2 really good years at the end like Trey Kaufman has right now. But it's hard to quantify, yes.
Anything that Omer, with his background, the overseas background, does that add anything to the mix? Has it added anything to the competitive mix, just a different style of basketball, a different kind of brand of basketball?
No, not really. He helps because he can pass. And if that led to him being a good passer, then, so be it. But his ability to pass the ball is good. And I like his aggressiveness shooting the basketball. Anytime you have great passers that are aggressive scoring, like it just is going to, organically open things up.
Matt, you're thoughtful about what mid-majors you schedule. What about Evansville that you want to see challenge your team?
Yeah. Well, they've had a couple injuries here. Turnbull hasn't played so far, and he'd be a regular for them. I don't know if he starts for them, but he'd be a regular for them. I would think he would. But if not, he definitely would play a lot. So they only played seven guys in their exhibition game. So in terms of a depth standpoint, like there has to be a couple guys still in that equation that we don't know about or I'm not sure about. But no, the league's very good. Obviously, I coached in the league for 6 years, and so that's what we've played some guys in the Missouri Valley and played some guys in the MAC, playing Kent State, playing Akron this year, played Toledo last year, and keep trying to play a schedule that fits your team, and then obviously, being in state and playing somebody who's in state, I think that means maybe a little bit more to them than it does us when it comes to the player's perspective. Because anytime you're a player and you're from the state, even though they don't have a lot of guys from Indiana, they have some. I think that piece normally jumps out because just kind of motivation for guys that wanted to play here or wanted to play at Notre Dame or wanted to play at Indiana or wanted to play at Butler. Sometimes those guys obviously slip through the cracks and become great players. But there's great players everywhere, and that's the one thing that your guys quickly find out. Like other night, like the start of the game, like even though we win by 40 points, like, they had 2 or 3 possessions to start the game where I think the quickness and just the kind of getting from A to B surprised a couple of our guys. And it's like, hey, everybody can play and, get ready. And I thought something if you don't have like a somewhat of a competitive fear, it's going to hurt you. Like you have to understand if you don't play well, you can get beat. I think anytime you play a Big Ten game, there's nobody in their right mind, especially on the road, that doesn't like, we got this. Like you just don't have that mentality. There's just good players everywhere. Evansville's, has a good team. So you don't know how things unfold, but you really don't care how things unfold. You just care about the time that when you play them. So I always say this to our guys at some point during the season when we're doing scouting early in the year, and I'm like, you have to be prepared for their best. In reality, are you going to get 8, 9 players? You're going to get their absolute best? Well, no, you're not. But if they're going to beat you, it normally means you're 8 or 9, didn't have their best game, and their 8 or 9 did have their best game. So you have to prepare for that. Prepare for somebody at the top of their game.
Matt, last year, I think CJ would admit that he reached probably more than he needed to sometimes, but he also created a lot of takeaways with on-ball defense, pressing guys. What has he done to get better at staying aggressive but not picking up the fouls 70 feet away from the basket?
Yeah. He does a good job of moving his feet and pressuring, and that's what we want. The number one thing we want when we pick the ball up is no kick-aheads. The ball moves faster on the pass. And so, that's number one for us. When we go up and pick up the ball, when you go up against somebody with quickness, full court, they're going to get by you. But they're 70 to 80 feet away from their basket. You got help from the inbounders, man. You can load up right there. But CJ does a good job of pressuring, and that's a little bit of his Achilles that, he naturally reaches too much. And you're just not going to always take the ball from a good player. You're just not. Now, if they kind of leave, blood in the water right there, be aggressive. They show weakness, be aggressive. But if they don't show weakness, you got to be solid and keep the ball in front of you because we don't want to get into that initial rotation.
Is there a challenge for new guys when they play in an offense with Braden, kind of learning to play with a guy that just plays different, sees things that maybe a lot of people don't, where
Right.
you may not think you're open, but he he can find you and make you open.
Yeah, you have to be ready. Whether that's a lob. We didn't have good timing the other day on a duck in by TK, and they've played together a lot. TK had to get there quicker, and then the fact that he didn't get there quicker, Braden had to wait for him then, and our timing got messed up. But I think you learn whether those are duck ins, whether those are lobs, throwing the ball, between his legs on a pocket pass, throwing the ball behind his back, when he comes off of things and the guy's open, throwing, those quick whip passes across the court. You have to be ready. But like when you play pickup with somebody or you practice with somebody for 3, 4, 5 months, it's not hard. It actually really helps you. You just have to be prepared that he could be, whipping the ball at you at any minute.
Has the coaching community ever asked to or pushed to change the redshirt rules for basketball to be more like football?
It's been in discussions. I don't know if someone's ever tried to push it through in terms of giving more games before you can do it. I know it's been discussed, but
Is there a reason why they're different from what you've gathered over the years?
I have no idea. My initial knee-jerk reaction would be because football and the propensity to get hurt, get injured more would be my guess, but I don't know that.
Just defensively, Clough plays high hedge, you drop with Jacobson. Is there a benefiting factor just to be able to play different styles of defenses successfully against a good offense?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, a good ball handler is going to know if we stick that way that this guy's dropping and that guy's hedging, so it's not like one guy's doing different things. But yeah, just we're going off the strengths of them more than anything. Like Oscar does a good job of getting out there. He will still play in some drop at times, especially when he's behind plays. Sometimes like the ball screen is the second to third action. Not a lot, but it does happen where you're deeper, and it just makes sense to stay deep at that time, even though you're kind of conceding a pull-up if your on-ball defense isn't close. So like for us, like keeping Daniel as an ultimate shot blocker at the rim really helps us. And then him getting out there, it's not as much as Daniel getting out there, it's as much as his retreat back. Like people don't realize the retreat back is what you have to time. Those guys can't hold forever, but yet, you drill to stop layups. Like you don't want layups.
Obviously, there's a lot of optimism going into the season, and I'm sure you don't want to look too far ahead, but hypothetically, if Purdue were to win the championship this year, I was curious what it would be like, what you would feel outside of the intrinsic value of winning, what it would mean to you knowing that through all these years you've stuck with this program and really just built a...
Yeah, it'd mean a great deal. I mean, like everybody outside of the people that win a national championship or people that don't qualify for their conference tournament, you end with a loss. And so just to have that, you have that shitty speech that you have at the end of the year where you thank everybody and appreciate your effort and everything like that, and you just want it to be over because you don't have a chance to go play anymore. And you feel bad because there's normally people in the room that can't play college basketball anymore. And so it's just that element right there is a good one. But it's the ultimate goal is to be able to win a national championship. And we have a lot of work to do. And so for that, kind of looking through what your goals are one thing, but how you get there. And we're really going to be defined by how we handle adversity. And I think that's kind of how things, come about, whether those are losses, injuries, foul trouble, how we handled that, and how you handle struggle shooting. Like you're probably not going to shoot the ball well in 6 straight games, just from an average standpoint, because the teams are all going to be good. They're all NCAA tournament teams. So if you shot the ball well 4 times out of 6 in those other 2 games, can you dominate the glass? Can you take care of the basketball? Can you make your free throws? Whatever, right? You've got to be able to do some other things when things aren't going your way versus a quality team. It's really the definition of a great team when things aren't going their way, but they can still find a way to win versus a really good team. So, thank you.